and welcome back to Music is the Source. I am John Chorba, and in this episode, we're not going to talk about music at all. So this is my third go-around here at doing this podcast, and you know why I call it Music is the Source? You know, it's just a name. I'm going to be talking about a whole bunch of different shit. And so today, we're not talking about music so much as we're talking about movies. So if you're on Facebook, there's a big thing going around, the 10-day movie challenge, which I love. I usually don't like that kind of shit. I usually don't like any type of like the chain letter type thing, tag you in this and continue it on and tag somebody else. I usually don't give a shit for any of that stuff. I usually think that's kind of lame. But I love movies, man. I'm a big movie buff. I watch movies all the time. I watch TV shows all the time. And I love that shit. But, you know, it's weird because I feel like we do social media incorrectly sometimes. Like, from seeing all the posts on Facebook about this, movie challenge, like, and seeing how many friends like these awesome movies that I also like too, what I like more is the comment section. Because the way the movie challenge, if you don't know what I'm talking about here, the movie challenge on Facebook is you post a picture of a movie that impacted you, right? And that's it. It just the photo, the still photo of the movie tells, it says all it needs to say. I get it. I get the reasoning behind why this exists. It's a bite-sized piece of thing that it takes 2 seconds of your time to find a picture of fucking Top Gun and, post it and be like, yeah, we all like Top Gun, whatever it is, and I don't know. It's like, come on. I want to know why it impacted you. Like, what I was going to say was the comment section about, why the person that posted, why they liked the movie, but also people just chiming in and being like, oh, I like that too. And they start throwing out movie quotes and it's a nice, fun conversation. And like, that's what's awesome. You know what I mean? I want to know, me personally, I don't know, maybe I'm in the minority here. I very well could be, but I know me personally, like I'd rather see that. I'd rather see you tell me why, why Top Gun was so important to you and why, the memories of seeing it with people that you love, especially if I'm one of them, like that's way more cool. It's cooler to me. You know what I mean? So, I was tagged in one of these things, by Gary Collerini, shout out Chop Man, for tagging me in this, for wanting to know what the 10 movies are that impacted me. And so I'm going to do that, but I didn't want to play the game. I'm not going to tag anybody in anything. If you want to do this, do it. You don't have to be a lunatic like me and create a whole fucking podcast around it. But I don't know. This is something that I love. I talk about movies all the time. I'm a big fan of movie quotes. I like to try to use movie quotes in casual conversation. I find that's a big part of my sense of humor. It's a big part of the sense of humor of my wife, of my friends, of my family. We like to talk in movie quotes sometimes, and movies have a big impact on me, and that's why I like this list. It's not the 10 best movies of all time. It's not your 10 most favorite movies of all time. It's the 10 movies that impacted you the most. They left an emotional impact on you to the point that you want to create a list about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's pretty cool about movies. Just like with music, when you get into a song, you don't just listen to a song once and be like, oh, okay, I listened to that song once and I got the emotional satisfaction that I was craving or whatever, and now I move on. No, you listen to the song over and over again. And movies and TV shows have that same impact with me. Like, if something's really, really good, if it impacts me either like in a moment in time in my life, or if the messaging of the story or of the movie just hits me in a certain way, I'll watch that shit 1,000 times. You know what I mean? Because it's awesome. So yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to just talk here about the movies that impacted me and the reasons why. I want to kind of just give a little backstory into why I chose these, because I think that the stories behind why you watch shit is just as interesting as the stories that are playing out on the screen. So here we go. No particular order here. I'm not going in any order. Just wrote them down as I thought of them. Okay, so let me get a swig of coffee, and here we go. So, La Bamba. La Bamba was something I talked about in a previous episode of the podcast. Is one of the first movies I ever remember seeing, and by first movie I remember seeing, I mean going to the theater and having the movie experience, because I saw it in the movie theater, and that had a huge impact on me in wanting to play the guitar. It's also a great fucking soundtrack. All those great hits from the 50s, obviously the Richie Valens stuff, Donna, La Bamba, the Buddy Holly shit, the Big Bopper shit, and then one that's really important to me is Sleepwalk, the Santo and Johnny instrumental piece that plays right when they find out that Richie died. It's on the radio. The mother starts crying, and it's a big emotional thing. But that piece of music is, whoa, that's awesome. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps here just even thinking about what that melody's like. That's definitely one of the songs. I want 2 songs played at my funeral. That would be one of them. I want that, and from the TV show Lost, the piece of music is called "There's No Place Like Home." So that is now on the public record. If anything unfortunate to ever happen, which should ever happen to me, make sure that those 2 songs are played at my funeral. My wife already knows this, so when she kills me and we're at my funeral, make sure that Sleepwalk and There's No Place Like Home is played. But, La Bamba reminds me of being a little kid. It reminds me of my mom. It reminds me of my grandfather. Just in that era. Like, I mean, I remember going to the movie theater with my mother. I don't know if my grandfather was with us. I can't remember. But it's just like this 1987 period of my life that, 87, 88, whenever the hell that movie came out. Just when I see images of the movie, I think of that, and it's also pretty quotable. One of my favorite quotes of La Bamba, we used to say this about the brother of one of my old bandmates who would get really, really drunk and come to our shows, and he would be like, what was Richie's brother's name in La Bamba? Bobby, right? I think it was Bobby, Robbie or Bobby. And, Bobby would show up drunk to Richie Valens' gig and be like, "That dude's my brother. Let me in the front. That dude's my brother." Like, there was a guy that would come drunk to our gigs that was the brother of one of the bandmates, and he was very, very, very much like that. So that's another thing that makes me think of La Bamba. Next one, Coming to America, the Eddie Murphy classic. This might be the movie that I've seen the most in my entire life. It's definitely up there. I'd watch it every day when I was a kid. And when I'm talking about being a kid, I mean, I was like 7 years old, and I was watching Coming to America on a daily basis. Now, if you've ever seen Coming to America, I don't know if you would let your 7-year-old watch that movie every single day. I mean, like, it's not... I don't know. Maybe by today's standards, it's not like so thing. But I mean, there's nudity in it, and like, there's definitely some jokes that a 7-year-old maybe shouldn't get, maybe shouldn't understand. But good God, man, that movie was and still is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. It's so quotable. So many great quotes. I use the quotes in conversation all the time. Makes me think of my cousin Scott in particular, as we would watch it, together all the time. And it just, the Randy Watson shit. Randy Watson is a fucking sexual chocolate goddamn legend. That was some funny shit that it still is funny. And I've seen that movie so many times. Oh God, hilarious movie. Next one would be The Naked Gun. It's up there as well, in terms of movies that I've seen a bajillion times. Maybe I've seen this the most. I had to include some sort of goofball spoof style movie that is just ridiculous with ridiculous humor, because I have a ridiculous sense of humor. So Spaceballs, Airplane, and Hot Shots were up in the running for this coveted spot on my list. But I had to give it to The Naked Gun because I think I saw this first, and I definitely have seen it the most. And if you just like trace back my lineage of my sense of humor, it starts with Leslie Nielsen in this movie. The deadpan, sarcastic, ridiculous nonsense, making connections of things that aren't connected, but like they're funny. Like that, I will always laugh at that shit. That is hilarious. I don't necessarily act like that. So I mean, sometimes I do, but like when I'm trying to be like Leslie Nielsen. But seeing that as a kid is, I mean, that shaped my sense of humor and the things that I found funny. And it's been so fun to watch since 1995, because when you watch it post 1995, you get to see O.J. Simpson like act like a normal person, but be like that dude fucking killed 2 people. It's pretty weird to see that. Like that he killed, and like just a couple years after that movie was made, like he would murder 2 people. And there he is. There's OJ preserved in his pre-murdering life for all to see for all eternity. So yeah, Naked Gun. Next one, I might get emotional with the next one. And it's Rocky Balboa. In my opinion, Rocky Balboa, the character is probably the greatest fictional character of all time, in my opinion. Now, I had to pick a Rocky movie. Rocky 3 was the first Rocky I ever saw. I don't really remember it, but there's footage that exists somewhere of me with my shirt off and like some sort of championship belt around my waist going Rocky 3. So that exists. I'm sure my mother will dig that up and post that on Facebook for all to see. Not that I give a shit. But Rocky, when I was a little kid, I think I was just drawn to it because, Hulk Hogan was in it, and I was a big wrestling fan growing up. And Mr. T, so, it was flamboyant, so I was just drawn to it because it just was probably visually appealing to me. So, but when I got a little bit older and can understand the premise and the story and the journey of Rocky, the Rocky story, along with, examples laid up by my father, are pretty much like the foundations of my determination and belief in myself, my self-esteem. I get a lot of work ethic type stuff from Rocky, from watching Rocky movies. I've seen all of the Rocky movies, I don't know, hundreds of times. And every time I see them, I still get that. Oh my God! You could do anything. You could fucking end the Cold War. You could do it. You could just fight people and end Cold Wars. You can do that. Rocky Balboa taught me that you can do that. And I could have chose any of either Rocky 1, Rocky 2, or Rocky 4. I could have chose either of those 3 because they impacted me. But I chose Rocky Balboa, the one that came out in 2006 when he's older. I chose that because the time, it reminds me of that time period in my life. It came out when I was in my early 20s. I just got out of Full Sail. I started my first real job. And that movie gave me a whole different perspective on life. I remember seeing it, and I cried so many times during that movie, and I still do if I watch it. I definitely cry a lot when I watch that movie, like a little bitch. But I don't care because it's so awesome. Why it kind of gave me a whole new perspective on life. It's the hardships that Rocky faced in all of the other movies, they were just these plot points. You know what I mean? He's the 1,000,000-to-1 shot, and then he's the he's on the revenge kick against, Apollo the second time, or more Apollo has revenge against him, but then Mr. T, it's revenge, it's stereotypical stuff, you can't really super identify with it, and then, you gotta fucking end the Cold War via a boxing match, obviously, and then you gotta fight dudes with AIDS on the streets of Philadelphia. So, to run it down, right, you got the 1,000,000 to why Rocky Balboa, had more of an impact on me, because it was about a dude overcoming the loss of a loved one through the only way that he knows how, which is the shit that he's most passionate about, which was fighting. So, to run it down, million to one shots are rare. Like, that's why they're a million to one shot. Like, not everybody's getting offered to fight the heavyweight champion of the world that just is a local bum. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't happen. That's a rare thing. You know, defending your world title as a heavyweight champion is a rare thing. Not everybody can identify with that. Obviously, ending the Cold War is a rare thing. You're not going to end a Cold War via a boxing match on a daily basis. And then fighting dudes with AIDS mullets on the streets of Philadelphia, it's less rare. It's less rare, but it's still rare. It's rare. But someone close to you dying and having to get over that, and having to work through that, you know, we're all going to go through that. Like, that's something that's a real life thing. And that, holy shit, did that resonate with how to handle death, how to handle the death of a loved one. Very much, very, very much, that part of the story resonated with me very, very deeply, very, very deeply. And it helped. When my dad was sick, you know, I threw myself into working on my first album. I would pretty much lock myself in my little studio area in my townhouse, and I would just write. I would write, I'd record, I'd edit, I'd scrap shit, I'd write shit, scrap it, write it, edit, keep working. I would do it day and night. I would do it day and night because that was my grief counseling. And I learned that from a fucking movie. I learned that from Rocky Balboa. And, you know, you want to talk about impact. Like, Rocky Balboa has such huge impact on again, my work ethic, my determination, and then with that movie in particular, how to deal with loss. Throw yourself into something that's productive, that you're passionate about, right? You don't turn to drugs and alcohol. You put that fucking energy into something that you love to do, that gives you pleasure, it makes you feel productive, and allows you to connect with others. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, music is what I'm going to do all the time, but the idea of throwing yourself, just getting so obsessed into something that it has to help you through a really tough situation. I definitely learned that concept from fucking Rocky Balboa. And you can't mention the Rocky movies without the soundtrack, without talking about the soundtrack. That score, come on. I mean, still, I don't work out as much as I should, as you could clearly see, but when I do, there are Rocky soundtrack songs on my playlists all the time, right? I mean, like, that is such fucking workout inspiration porn. It is so great. It fires me up to no end. I've heard them 1,000 times. I've worked out to them 1,000 times. Well, maybe not 1,000 times, maybe more like 50 times. But it does get me real fired up. Next on my list, let me get some more coffee in here. The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight. Batman, in my opinion, is the greatest comic book character of all time. He's the GOAT. It's not even close. Like, I hate to use the word best and greatest when we're talking about things that are subjective, but fuck you. Batman is the greatest comic book character of all time because he's just a dude. There's no superpowers. Yeah, he's rich. Okay, right. Maybe he's got white privilege, right? But he's just a dude, right? He's just a dude that I mean, even if he's rich, like, he had to learn how to fight. You know what I mean? He had to learn how to be a detective. Like, don't underestimate the skills that Bruce Wayne had to learn and had to master in order to become Batman. You can't just write it all off on the fact that he's rich, right? You have to practice fucking spinning back kicks. You have to figure out, you know, how fingerprints work. Like, you don't just learn that, you know what I mean? Like, or you don't just pick it up. Like, you have to fucking study and figure out how to do it. So when you think about how much work went into becoming Batman, right? Tip of the cap to Mr. Bruce Wayne, the fictional man that he is. So he's the greatest comic book character of all time. He has the best villains. That's not even debatable. Joker, Penguin, Riddler, Two-Face. Come on. Like, he's the best. He's the best. And Batman was my childhood, right? My childhood could be summed up into music, wrestling, WWF, and Batman. And that pretty much sums it up. the Adam West reruns on Nick at Night or whatever the hell it was on. And then, I remember Batman 89 coming out with Michael Keaton. I remember waiting in line at the Viewmont Mall to go see it with my mom and dad. Became obsessed with Batman. And then I remember when Batman Begins was coming out. Because obviously the last movie before Batman Begins was Batman and Robin, and we all know what a gigantic piece of shit that movie was. Complete and total bullshit, nonsense. I don't know what the hell was going on with that. Just a terrible, terrible movie. And so that came out, and it's like, well, they just killed Batman. They're never going to do a good Batman again. And then I hear that this Batman Begins is coming out. And I remember looking into it on the internet and saying that Christopher Nolan was directing it, and I had never heard of Christopher Nolan. I was like, what did he do? So I watched Insomnia, and I'm like, I don't know, like, it was a good movie. I watched Memento, and I'm like, that was a really good movie. But like, I'm like, I don't know, what does this guy know about Batman? Who the hell knows? And then they cast Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, and I remember thinking, the American Psycho dude? Like, I don't know. I can't see him as Bruce Wayne. And then I heard that the Scarecrow was going to be the main villain. And I'm like, oh, they're going to fuck this up. They're going to fuck it up. Like, it's going to be stupid. This is going to be a dumb, dumb movie, just like Batman and Robin. Like, this is going to be dumb. I heard that it was a, kind of a year one story where he's just learning how to become Batman and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so fucking dumb. But then I saw it, and holy shit. That was like, wow. That was wow. So Batman Begins could easily be on this list because of, like, I remember walking out of the theater going, I can't wait. I can't wait for the next one, because at the end of Batman Begins, they show the Joker card. And it's like, after watching what you watch with Batman Begins, you just knew, you're like, he's going to do the Joker right. Like, they're going to do, however he does the Joker, I'm like, I know that Christopher Nolan is going to do this Joker right. And so the wait between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, I was obsessed with finding out all the information I could about this movie. I want to know, for big thing, who's going to play the Joker, right? I believe at the time the rumors were DiCaprio, I think, was like in the running for it. Who was it? Adrian Brody, maybe? There was some weird... Oh, Paul Bettany was one. Paul Bettany was one that was rumored, and I was like, oh, he would be great. He was my pick. He would have been my number one draft pick on who to play the Joker at that time. If you asked me in 2005 who would be the best Joker, I would have said Paul Bettany. And I still think he probably would be a good Joker. But I remember when Heath Ledger got cast, there was a tremendous amount of backlash about that. There was like, everybody was like, because it fucking Brokeback Mountain, right? It's like, oh, because he played a gay cowboy, what is he going to make the fucking Joker gay now? Like, no, people are stupid, but that was a real thing. And so I watched a few of his movies, because I never really watched a Heath Ledger movie. So I watched a few of his movies, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I think this guy could do it. Like, I think he could do it. And then I remember seeing like the first still image of the Joker and being like, I don't know, that wasn't really what I expected to see. But then you see the fucking movie, and every time I watch it, I fully expect when they roll the credits that it's like Bruce Wayne, Batman, Christian Bale, right? Alfred Pennyworth, Michael Caine, the Joker as himself. Like, that's what I feel. Like, Heath Ledger completely disappeared, and that was the Joker. Like, that was the Joker. And yeah, leaving that theater after that, I was like, I said wow a lot after watching Batman Begins, but after watching The Dark Knight, it was holy shit. And it's so rewatchable. The score is fantastic. Hans Zimmer, unbelievable composer. His use of dynamics are incredible. I bought his. I have no interest in like scoring films, but I bought the Hans Zimmer masterclass just because I wanted to watch him do what he did, because he's a fucking genius. He's a genius at composing scores. He did Gladiator. He's pretty much done all the Christopher Nolan movies. So genius. Next on the list, Clerks. Clerks is on this list because this is like the epitome of my teenage years. that awkward phase that we all go through, or we're not kids anymore, but we're not adults, and we're just these awkward, pimple, horny-ridden, fucking weird creatures. And Clerks is like my definition of that period of my life. Shout out Chuck Colarusso, Chris Schultz. They are the ones that got me into Clerks, and that was like our favorite movie as teenagers, as we caused ruckus and stole beer out of the Colarusso Cafe restaurant. So what made Clerks interesting to me, the dialogue. I mean, I never heard people talk like that. Like the way the conversations went in that movie was just, everything was like quick-witted and sarcastic and funny and like interesting. But it was interesting, like they're talking about Star Wars and shit. You know what I mean? And like they're talking about it not like a bunch of idiots. You're like, I feel like up until I saw Clerks, when people talked about comic books or movies or shit like that, like it was all nerd. Only nerds did that. You know what I mean? And when nerds talked about it, they talked about it as like this nerdy voice, and it wasn't intelligent. And then Clerks is like, these are yeah, he works at a fucking convenience store, but Dante was smart. You know what I mean? Like Randall's smart. Like they're intellectual. Like, and they're having an intellectual discussion about stupid shit. You know what I mean? And that's what was fascinating to me. It was so fascinating, and I wanted to be able to talk like that. I'd like, if I'm a decent communicator at all, it's because of watching Kevin Smith movies. Kevin Smith is a virtuoso at conversation. Watch an evening with Kevin Smith. Listen to that dude just talk. And he could just talk and rattle funny shit off the top of his head and be authentic and engaging and genuine and always be fresh with like what he's saying. And it's awesome. So like, he's a big influence on me as a communicator. So that movie obviously impacted me. And we can't mention Clerks without mentioning the soundtrack. It's got Alice in Chains on it. Berserker, come on. Like, we got so many good songs that are on the Clerks soundtrack. So that's another big reason why it's on my list. Next up, Halloween. And impact. Again, we're talking about impact because nothing has scared me more ever in my life than Michael Myers as a kid. That scene when Jamie Lee Curtis just stabbed him in the closet and he does the fucking Undertaker and wakes up and turns his head, like, that as a kid that scene freaked me the fuck out. And in the beginning of the movie, when Jamie Lee Curtis is in class and she just looks out the window and he's just standing there, right? Like that's why that movie was so scary, and it's what like all the sequels pretty much get wrong, is that it's about the anticipation. Like that's what was scary about Michael Myers. He wasn't a slasher in that he like just killed everybody in every scene, and it was always gruesome and grotesque. It was just this, you knew that fear that something dangerous was lurking around the corner, and he's the manifestation of that. And that scared the shit out of me as a kid. And I still, to this day, I've been having Michael Myers dreams since I was a kid. And like, he's in my subconscious and my psyche. Like anytime like if I'm anxious or afraid of anything, I'll usually have a dream where Michael Myers is in it. And I believe that's because like he's the, what my childhood, has attached, my childhood memories have attached Michael Myers as like this manifestation of fear and worry and dread. And like, so when I dream sometimes, if I'm anxious or if I'm, whatever, going through a tough time or whatever the fuck it is, I tend to have a Michael Myers dream. But what's interesting is over the past like 15 years or so, like instead of them being like when I was a kid and a teenager, like they used to be nightmares. Like I would wake up like, like afraid because Michael Myers was in my dream. But then as I got, older and starting to realize, oh, I'm in a dream. Like this is just a dream. And I started fighting back with Michael Myers because I just realized, okay, if you're in my dream, that means I could be Wolverine in my dream and I could fight you. We could fight and like nothing's going to happen to me because I realized this is just a dream. And the one funny time, this is a funny story, funny dream, weird dream. I won't tell the whole thing because it's stupid. No one, I don't really think anybody likes to hear dreams told, the stories, because they're just, unless you experience them, you have no idea what the fuck they mean. But the one dream I did have where I fought Michael Myers in my grandmother's backyard, and I fought him and I ripped off his mask, and underneath the Michael Myers mask was John Cryer. John Cryer of Two and a Half Men fame. I don't know what that means. If you have if you understand psychology more than I do, and you have an opinion on what the hell that means, like why was John Cryer under the Michael Myers mask? If that means something, please let me know, because that's a confusing dream, but also quite funny. All right, next up on the list, movies that impacted me. We're on number 8 here. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Now, I will say up front that I think that the first Vacation is the better movie. I think it's the funnier movie. It's a movie that I might like a little bit more. If you ask me which one I would rather watch, I would probably choose the first one over the second one. But in terms of impact, it's undeniable that Christmas Vacation has way more of an impact on me than National Lampoon's Vacation. Because Christmas is my favorite holiday. I've talked about that in the first episode, but Christmas time in my parents' house, it was a big musical thing. They had to have the jam sessions with my grandfather and my uncle, and that's a big reason why I got into playing music. And also, along that Christmas holiday, like ever since Christmas Vacation was released, I've watched it at least once every single Christmas. God, probably 30 years now. Like, it came out in 89, 90. Yeah, it's almost 30 years where I've watched every Christmas. And it wasn't until a few years ago, until 2011, 2012, when everybody started getting on Facebook, that you realize that, oh, everybody does that. Like, that's not unique to me. Like, so many people watch Christmas Vacation at least once every time around Christmas. So, that's cool. Like I feel like I'm I'm sharing something with, a lot of people. Like that's a very, very, very cool thing. It's insanely quotable. In fact, I just quoted Christmas Vacation yesterday. I asked my wife if she needed anything. I said, "Do you need anything? Do you need a glass of water? Can I take you out to the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead?" So throw it out all the time. Throw out the movie quotes as often as I can. Yeah. And that's the big thing to do too. Like, not only did I grow up watching it, my wife grew up watching it. Her family watches it every Christmas. And the first time I've spent Christmas with them, we watched Christmas Vacation. You know what I mean? And it's just a cool thing. Like, it's something that I'll do with our daughter. Hopefully do with my grandkids. Like, it's a cool thing. It's a cool tradition. It's a cool tradition that had a big, big impact on me. 9th on the list, I Love You Man, a little more recent movie. I think that came out 2009. God, recent. Yeah, recent. 10 years ago. 10 years ago is not recent. To me, it feels recent. I don't fucking feel like 2009 was 10 years ago. Feels like it was 2 years ago. So, I don't know. I could go off on a rant on that. But I Love You Man impacts me because it's the first movie I ever saw with my wife when we first started dating and hanging out. It's the first time I ever farted in front of her. And I also, while we were watching the movie, I fell asleep and drooled all over the place, all over her, all over myself. And she didn't, tell me to get lost and continued to want to hang out with me, even though I do things like every human being does, like fart and drool. So it was cool. That's like after that, I don't know. It was like she's a keeper. She's a keeper. She wasn't superficial, or she's exactly what I was looking for. And that was authentic and real, and understands that people fart and people drool when they sleep, and that just so happened while we were watching this movie, I Love You Man, which I feel like is an underrated movie. I don't feel like enough people give that movie the credit that it deserves and how fucking funny it is. So I think it's a little bit underrated. Super quotable. Slap at a bass. Super, super quotable. Paul Rudd is a comedic genius. And I got to throw this on this list because I've been told by many different people that I either remind them and or look like either Paul Rudd or Jason Segel. So I've heard that many times, that I either look like Paul Rudd a little bit, or I resemble Paul Rudd, or I look like Jason Segel, or I act like one of them in some way, shape, or form. I've heard that from several people, or I've heard that like I look like the product of a Jason Segel, Paul Rudd, Gay Sex Baby. Gay Sex Baby, band name, new band name, I call it, trademark it, Gay Sex Baby. Maybe not. That's maybe not a good band name idea now that I think about it. But I have been told that I resemble them. So I don't know. You tell me. I don't know if I really see it. I think they're both way more attractive than I am. Number 10 on the list, Goodfellas. I thought about leaving this one blank because I thought about being a little sappy and being like, I'm going to leave number 10 blank, and that's going to be the movie that me and my daughter watch, and that's the movie that impacted me then. Thought about doing that, but I didn't. Putting Goodfellas on the list, one, because this would be on my list of one of the best movies of all time. It is such a good movie. So, like, you just get sucked into this crazy life. It's awesome, If you haven't seen it, you're an idiot. That's all I'll say. If you have not seen Goodfellas, you're a dumb person. It's one of the best films of all time. Oddly, it's a movie that reminds me the most of my hometown in northeastern Pennsylvania, which is weird. It's odd because it has absolutely nothing to do with Scranton or Archbold or anything to do with northeastern Pennsylvania at all. It's not set in northeastern Pennsylvania. They don't mention it. I don't think they mention it. They might. Now that I'm thinking about it, they might mention Scranton in it. I don't know. I might be making that up. I can't remember. But it reminds me of northeastern Pennsylvania because there's definitely still. I mean, there absolutely certainly was a good amount of mafia presence in the northeastern Pennsylvania area. I don't know how prevalent it really is to this day. I think it still exists to some degree, but I feel like a good portion of the residents of northeastern Pennsylvania fall into these couple categories, right? They're Italian and they're in the mafia, or they're Italians who are not in the mafia but act like they're in the mafia. And then there are people who aren't Italian at all, but think they're Italian. And because they've watched Goodfellas and The Sopranos and the Godfather movies, they think they are Italian and they think they are in the mafia. I feel like there's a lot of people in northeastern Pennsylvania that are kind of like that, And so when I see Goodfellas, I can't help but think of those people that come to mind when I say those things, especially the people that aren't Italian that think they're not only are they Italian, but like they're super Italian, and being Italian apparently means you have to be in the mafia, which that's obviously not true. You could be Italian and not be in the mafia, but that's a stereotype that they associate for themselves. It's a weird thing, but I've seen it many times. It's strange, it's odd, but it's something that when I watch Goodfellas, it makes me think of home, and it's a great quotable movie. The soundtrack kicks fucking ass. A lot of those great those songs from the 70s, 60s and 70s. So good. And yeah, like I said, when I watch it, I can't help but think of my hometown. So there they are. There's my 10. It's La Bamba, Coming to America, The Naked Gun, Rocky Balboa, Clerks, The Dark Knight, Halloween, Christmas Vacation, I Love You Man, and Goodfellas. So, just my 2 cents. I want to hear your version of what I just did. You don't have to be a lunatic like me and do a podcast and ramble on for fucking 45 minutes to an hour about the movies that you like. But honestly, like, when you think about that when you're posting shit on social media, that's all I can tell you. Just my 2 cents here. Take it for what it's worth. Probably worth just that, 2 cents. I would much rather read about what you're passionate about. If you like something, put it into words that you can stand behind and express yourself why you like what you like. I want to see that. I don't know if I speak for everybody here, but I know that's what I want to see. So, I'm not gonna tag anybody, not gonna make anybody do this little game. Do it if you want to, but if you do it, I feel like break the rules of the game. Don't just put a picture up. I get it. I get why, that is the way it is, but I don't care. I think this way is better. I would much rather know why you like, the movies that you like. I want to know the stories behind them. Like, that's more interesting to me. I would rather read that than read another poorly thought out political argument against Donald Trump or for Donald Trump. I would rather read about why you like fucking Top Gun, right? I would much rather read that. So if you're ever thinking, man, like I'm going to talk about how I like Top Gun, you know that there's at least one person out there that is interested in reading that, and I would much rather read it than, again, some poorly thought out argument of a political nature where they have no idea what they're talking about. They have no idea what the structures of an argument are and how argumentation actually works. It's just nonsense. I would much rather read, your thoughts on music, movies, TV shows. I'm way more into that than I am into anything. So, yes. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up here. I talked long enough. So that wraps up another episode of Music is the Source. Please like, subscribe, and share with people that you think might like hearing me talk. All right, I'll see you all next time.